I'm Clint Carlos, and I'm one of the two founders of SOAR.com.
Okay.
I've got a background in tech entrepreneurship. I've started a couple of other companies, mostly in the HR and human development space.
Okay.
And then my kind of only corporate experience was as a partner at Gallup, where I sold, large global consulting engagements to the Fortune 500.
Really interesting. Gallup was like this personality test, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Gallup is most famous for two things: the Gallup poll, which they've kind of been their gift to humanity for decades,
Yep.
just to have a pulse of human well-being around the world. And the second thing that they're famous for is the Strengths Finder assessment. They've now renamed it Clifton Strengths, and it's a way to get insights into what makes you think, act, and behave differently than other people.
So how did working at Gallup kind of shaped or change who you are as a person?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. First, as an entrepreneur before that, I felt like I had a lot of ideas and I was able to kind of bring resources together as entrepreneurs do and recruit people to, pursue a vision. But I never really had experience in a big organization or seeing into the problems and challenges that large employers have. And so I was seeking that experience, and I got that to really see what big companies are plagued with, what kinds of challenges and problems they face, what kind of buying processes they have, what the decision centers look like within those organizations, and how to position what I do as an entrepreneur as a solution for them. So that was impactful for me in my career. The second thing I learned, if I were to boil it down to its essence, is that you can't really change who you are or who the people around you are, but understanding their innate tendencies changes the way that you interact with people and learn to really admire what's unique about other people. Because too often we as humans value people who think and behave like us and don't recognize that people who think, behave, and feel differently, they actually have strengths in areas and things that you can draw on for that uniqueness.
So that's an interesting topic, change. So on my side, I try always to push myself outside our comfort zone. I always strive to be more for not only in business, but as a human being, for my wife, for my friends, in sports, for example. I always strive to be my best version, and leave my mediocre / animal self behind. So
Right.
theoretically, I do change a lot, and I do expect myself to be not completely different in, like, say, a year from now, but I like, being 1% better on a daily basis. So theoretically, I should be 360% better on a yearly basis, whatever that means. But that means that I should be a different human being after a year. And to be honest, it's quite true. If you compare myself when I was, for example, 17, and my life was like partying and playing video games, now it's running a business, managing 30 people on a daily basis. What do you think about change, and why do you say it's not possible? I do understand you need to work with
Yeah.
someone's strength, but
Well,
what is your opinion on it?
yeah. So what research shows is that the pathways in the brain, your instinctive reaction to a situation doesn't change. While you can
Okay.
change your life path, right? What most people teach and what schools teach is you'll get the most improvement if you fix your areas of weakness.
Okay.
But what strengths psychology and all the data and research proves is that if you leverage or double down on your natural instinctive advantages, you'll have the greatest growth. So if you wanted to grow
Okay.
1% a day, your better path would not be to say, hey, I hate talking to new people that I don't know. And
Yeah.
I'm really, it's not a strength of mine. Instead of trying to force yourself to make that a strength, would be to identify your areas of natural strength. So maybe you're extra analytical, or let's say that you develop deep relationships with few people, you'd have greater success and change by focusing through those strengths. So, you leverage your deep, close relationships instead of going to networking events where you're going to have shallow relationships with 100 new people. And so
Okay.
that's the paradigm shift. It's not that you can't improve your life, change the direction or the path that you're on. It's that you can't change the pathways in your brain, and those instinctive responses to the world around you guide where you ought to invest your time and effort to get the greatest change.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here. So so basically, like, I have things about myself that well, first, isn't like neuroplasticity about like breaking some connections in your brain and building others? And second, I have many things about myself, for example, that I don't like. For example, like I said, I call this beast an animal, my lower self.
Right.
And I tend to want to change that. For example, I tend to overeat when I'm stressed, and I want to
Right.
change that. And I've been successful at doing so and fixing a bunch of other habits. And I do think that I will be naturally inclined to double down on my strengths. But I do feel that sometimes those things that bring me down need to be changed. And this is like one of my core theory in life, that I kind of need to fix those weaknesses, not focus on them, but to fix them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you definitely have to manage against things that are destructive in your life. But when you think about strength science, it's really deeper than the behavior itself. So if the behavior is, I feel stressed, I eat, right? What's deeper than that is what's causing you to be stressed, right? If you're stressed because you're asked to repeatedly perform a task that doesn't align to your strengths, then you ought to rework your job or your role in such a way that you're doing things that leave you energized and not stressed. And by doing more of the things you're naturally good at and fewer of the things that you're not naturally good at, stress wears away and you'll be less likely to fall into those behaviors.
That's good. That's a good reply. Most entrepreneurs will never outsource to anyone, thus will constantly do what they're not good at. So like, I guess most of them will be stuck in a never-ending cycle, according to that theory, right?
Yeah, it's I think that's the bane of the entrepreneur's existence, is that so often, because they feel so deeply about their mission, about their, the company that they're building, they view it as a child, and they get so invested that they can't see anyone else caring as much as they do or doing exactly what they would do. And it's really difficult for them to let go. And, that happens on a spectrum for every entrepreneur. But if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, they quickly recognize what their competitive advantage is.
Correct.
And they exploit that, to the nth degree, while letting others come to their team and join their vision and fill the gaps of the things that they don't naturally excel at. And it's not easy to do, but I think when you get to that level of maturity around accepting your strengths and non-strengths, then the magic really happens. You free yourself from being a slave to your business, and you empower those around you to bring what they do to the table in areas where they naturally shine.
Powerful stuff. Elon Musk, this guy does a lot of things. He could be, well, some people say he's a jack of all trades. I think he's more of a product/engineering guy, but this guy would say to many people that he is not the type of person to focus on one thing. What do you think about that?
I think that tells you, and I don't mean to get too deep into strengths, because I think it's a great construct that's really helpful. But from that lens, I would say that his strengths are looking at different things at one time and cross-pollinating ideas, and he gets energy from doing more things at once. Some people and I, for example, have my second strongest strength theme is called focus, which means I do my best work when I stay deeply focused on one outcome and goal. But for every entrepreneur, that's different. And so I think what Elon has recognized is that is the way he's wired. He's not going to change that. He's not going to go do what Jeff Bezos did and focus on one thing for 30 years. He's going to do several things at once and thereby be the best version of himself.
Okay. And yeah, thank you for answering that. And you also answered what was your main strength. Although like Jeff Bezos, one could say that he was his business called the Everything Store. So not sure if he was like super focused. I would probably place him in the cross-pollination area too. But anyway, let's shift gear here. Let's talk about SOAR, because it is an interesting business. Can you like describe it to me, like if I was 5?
Yeah, well, basically, we're on a path to take all the world's knowledge and wisdom, index, transcribe, clip, and organize that in a way that we can stream personalized, bite-sized insights to people when they need it the most.
Wow.
And so as a kid, as a 5-year-old, I think 5-year-olds learn at a much faster pace than the rest of us. and one reason for that is they're extremely curious, right? They ask questions all the time. I mean, if you've ever been around, a kid that age, it almost gets tiresome because you're sick of answering questions. But then at about age 6, people put you in a classroom and they say, shut your mouth, stop asking questions, and just, you're going to learn what we want you to learn. Exactly. And it erodes natural curiosity and it slows human learning to a crawl. And so what I think SOAR is partly doing is emancipating humans from linear learning and distraction and divisive, stream content, and returning to our roots of curiosity-based learning. So if all the world's knowledge is transcribed, indexed, clipped, and tagged, and then personalized to me, then that empowers me to ask a question. And in the context of that question, get answers from a 360 panoramic view. So, for example, if I wanted to learn about a combustion engine, I might want to learn about that from the lens of the entrepreneur who commercialized it, or from the scientist who designed it, or from the historian who talks about the historical importance of that invention on humanity, or from a sociologist, or a number of other lenses. But I can't get that 360 panorama view in one class in school. Whereas with a platform like ours, you can really get to the extreme end of your curiosity. And I think that will help humans learn deeper, longer, and retain more of that knowledge.
That's really high level to describe your business, I would guess, and it's really interesting. Don't you think that Wikipedia does it pretty well right now in terms of the project you just described?
Wikipedia is a great resource. What Wikipedia lacks is private proprietary knowledge, right? Okay. So like if I do a Google search, I get an index of all the publicly available stuff that's out there. But if I wanted to know something proprietary, some deeper knowledge, that's locked content, it's gated content. So part of what we're doing is unlocking that. The other thing Wikipedia ignores is my own relation to a topic. One of the things that we're doing is we're letting people import their knowledge. So we've got a connection to Zoom, and we're building one to Microsoft Teams and Evernote, and family histories and email and Google Drive and Dropbox, so that my knowledge, the things I've learned, my interactions and experiences can apply as a kind of an AI filter to what the broader knowledge that exists out there.
Okay. So Sandra Coach, I use SOAR to kind of record my calls and everything. The platform also allows me to kind of build classes / ebook and give them to my audience, sell them to my audience. Is that it?
That's an interesting point. So I think what you're picking up. By the way, if you use SOAR, thank you. I wasn't aware of that. We're just completing a major pivot at SOAR. We
Okay.
started as a coaching platform because our underlying mission is to help uplift humanity.
Okay.
But
Love it.
in the last year, we've pivoted to really be a scalable AI learning and memory platform. And
Okay.
so we take video, audio, text content, we convert it so that it's streamable on any smart speaker, Alexa or Google Assistant, as well as on mobile apps.
Yep.
And then we personalize that learning experience based on what an individual is trying to achieve in life.
Okay. Quite interesting. So I do understand like this grandiose mission here. So will you still be serving coaches? Can you like give me a quick idea of why did you pivoted as well, and what precisely the pivot will bring for you and your clientele?
Yeah, well, look, we will serve different audiences. I mean, we'll go beyond our coaching, clientele to
Mhm.
individuals, enterprises, associations, and societies. And so we want that direct connection. It's hard to build a business through other service providers, and
Mhm.
we just felt like there's way more upside and scale to this side of our business than focusing on being a marketplace for coaches, and a lot of those things for coaches. In the last few years there have been a lot of alternative solutions pop up. It's becoming fairly commoditized, so
Mhm.
we're that's not nearly our main focus anymore.
Okay, okay. Let's shift gears here as there are about like 9 minutes left to the interview. I want to
Okay.
talk a bit more about you and who you are, what are your habits and stuff. At what time do you get up and at what time do you go to bed?
Well, I just am kind of wired. I think I got it from my mom. I wake up pretty much automatically before my alarm goes off. I set my alarm every day for 5:50, and I'm awake
Oh,
usually 30 minutes before that every day.
yeah. Well, that's pretty good too. I'm that way too. Um, I guess it's just putting an intention, right? But that's pretty interesting. At what time do you go to bed?
Well, that part I'm less consistent with, but I'd say on average around 11:30.
Okay, 11:30. So you get about like 7 hours of sleep, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Do you have a morning routine? When you get up, do you do sports? Like, what do you do?
The first thing I do is I read.
Okay.
Reading's like a really important part of my day.
Mhm.
And I've actually blocked out kind of the first 2 hours of my calendar every day for reading. And I split that time between reading that's kind of business related,
Okay.
and then more personal reading, reading related to my faith or
Mhm.
other personal things. And so that
Is
just
it
helps
split
me kind of.
50-50 or?
No, it's not 50-50. It kind of just goes in phases,
Uh-huh.
depending on what I'm thinking, what's on my mind at the time, and what I'm
Mm,
focused on.
mm,
But I just find that that's my most uh, clear-headed time of day. I'm the most focused. I extract the most insights, and
mm,
so if I protect that time, then the rest of the day goes much better. And I find that for me, and this is one of those strengths themes, when I'm interacting with people, it gives
mhm,
me energy. And
mm,
so I don't mind having most of my calls and things later in the day, because
mhm.
my natural energy drops after lunch.
Okay.
And so when I'm talking with people and spending that time on the phone, it kind of is an artificial boost to energy throughout the day.
Okay. Interesting. I'm the same way. Well, depends the call, right? If it's a tough call with an angry customer, well, good luck with gaining energy of that.
Right.
But typically,
Right.
like I consider myself like probably a 50-50 extroverted person, but I do derive call from especially motivating my team. That's a fun part of my day.
Right.
You talked about reading 2 hours in the morning. Like, do you drink any coffee? Because if I would say I get up, I have my Kindle like next to my bed. I do that sometimes in the weekend when I can sleep like 10 to 11 hours. I'm huge on sleeping. But if I would do
Uh-huh.
that on the weekdays, I'd just go back to sleep. So do you wake up like naturally, or do you have a coffee?
Yeah. No, I wake up. Well, so I live in Arizona and I've got a bunch of citrus trees. So the thing that
Oh,
wakes me up the best is fresh grapefruit juice. And for about 7 months of
wow.
the year, I can just walk outside, pick a grapefruit or two, juice it,
Epic.
and that gives me a nice wake up. And the rest
Nice.
of the year, I probably drink more Red Bull than I should.
The sugar-free version, at least.
No, I can't do anything sugar free. I don't like the fake sugar.
Yeah, well, I guess Red Bull, uh, apart from the sugar, it's not too bad. I used to drink it for a while. It's one of my favorite tastes on earth, and I love the brand, like based on
Yeah,
performance and all the
right.
crazy stuff they get in. So I really love the brand. But basically, it's a complex B. So like there's B6, B12 in there. There's taurine
Yeah,
and there's caffeine.
right.
So always a nice boost. But back in the days, I would drink two, and after two, I tend to get that headache.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So I wanted to follow up also like on what you're reading nowadays. Can be personal or business, like what, or just like the most fascinating books that you've read in 2021. Anything you'd like to add value here?
Well, two of my so obviously I'm really into my faith, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Okay.
Saints, and
Okay.
that is a big part of my life.
Hmm.
But I'm also really passionate about history, and I'm kind of a
Okay.
history geek. I love
Okay.
reading historical biographies.
Uh-huh.
And this year I found an author who has kind of blended those. His name's Tim Ballard.
Hmm.
He's a former operator with the military, and he's created a nonprofit called Operation Underground Railroad, and
I've heard about it.
they go into the toughest situations around the world to
Yep.
extract children who have
Yep.
been sold into slavery for sex trafficking.
Yep.
But he authored several books about the founding of America and God's role in that. And I find it to be, I found them to be brilliant reads,
Wow.
and really, really motivational and insightful. And
Hmm.
part of what he does is connect kind of, what he's doing today, fighting slavery. And, he
Yep.
says that there are more slaves today, 40 million slaves today than there ever were in history. And he
That is
connects it to
crazy.
kind of the early plague of slavery in this country. And it's just really, really interesting to connect those and see kind of, the role that played in our history.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So interesting. Like I need to definitely read more on that one because I am uneducated when it comes to knowing like the 40 million slaves that we have in our modern world. I would guess like most of them are sex slave, but yeah, definitely I need to read more on that one. And I've heard about what this guy does. It's touching. It's amazing.
Hmm.
I mean, I've heard him a couple of times with Russell Brunson, and
Yeah.
evil does exist, like there
Oh
are
yeah.
crazy evil people in this world, and that's an obvious example, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's tough to see who's evil and who's not. And in that situation, it's pretty clear to me someone abusing of a children that cannot even think
Yeah.
for himself, and it's so innocent, so creative. And I mean, if there's a worse thing than school, then that's it. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
hey, that being said, that's super interesting. I will definitely look at it. Regarding what you just said, I do have a recommendation of a book. I consider
Okay.
myself a spiritual guy. I'm also, I love history. And, like I'm in Mexico right now. My wife is Mexican. Here in
Okay.
Mexico, it's pretty common, Christianity, if you compare it to
Hmm.
back home in Montreal, Canada, where people are just leaving faith and have been for the past years for many reasons. But
Right.
I'm constantly, I love just going in churches to meditate when I'm walking the street. And I reminded myself that this weekend while I was out that Jesus was a real human being. And there's this book called Zealot. Have you heard about it?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's basically Jesus Christ's biography. So it's called
Cool.
Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. And
Hmm.
this is probably the most accurate book of Jesus' real life, So, I mean, this is super interesting, and Jesus is probably still one of the most beloved human on earth, even nowadays. And it's
Yeah.
on my reading list, so I'm studying that actually today. So that's
Oh, nice.
another
I'll check it
interesting book
out.
for the audience here. We're
Yeah.
almost done here. I know you have a busy schedule. I just wanted to know what energizing habits you have throughout your day, because you named that talking to humans gives you energy. What else gives you energy throughout the day?
um, you know, I, I just feel for me it's all about people,
Hmm.
if and so one of the things, even though I work from home and have for
Hmm.
years,
Hmm.
I try to make a conscious effort, and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I have an assistant whose full-time job is to just manage my LinkedIn,
Hmm.
but even that aside, I try to make a conscious effort to go out for live meetings with people as often as I
Hmm.
can,
Hmm.
here in my community. And that just like clearing my mind, stepping away from the desk,
Hmm.
driving for 10 minutes or 20
Hmm.
minutes, and having a live meeting, always I always step back to my desk with more
Hmm.
focus and energy than I had when I left.
Nice.
And so I think people get cooped up, they get Zoom fatigue, and they
Hmm.
probably don't do enough of that. And
Hmm.
now things are pretty open. Most people are vaccinated, and it's just, it always is worthwhile.
Very nice. And I forget about that one a lot. I started my startup six years ago, almost seven, and we've been remote since day one. And
Yeah,
it's definitely something I need to work on. On my side, I tried to go on the roof here and have my vitamin D and breathe Wim Hof breathing. It's
yeah.
quite good to energize me. But hey, this has been pretty nice. Did you feel energized by this conversation?
Yeah, of course. Great to meet you, Charles. And by
Nice
the
to
way, if
meet
you
you.
want to, we have a lot of people, a lot of podcasters that have signed up to publish their podcasts on our platform, so that their
Sure.
listeners can get ad-free full text search. And if you're
Hmm.
interested, shoot me a note. We'll get you plugged in.
Definitely, definitely interested. Thank you so much for your time, Clint. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll be in touch. All right.
Sounds good. Likewise.
Peace. Bye.
Bye.